There's a massive difference between feeling something and having something. And this is where most entrepreneurs go wrong when it comes to having anxiety. You're doing 30, 50, 100K a month and you're a male business entrepreneur and you're feeling anxiety, something is out of alignment, something is out of balance, and it's gonna hold you back. But it's not what everyone's telling you. And I'm gonna show you how to get rid of your anxiety in just one YouTube video. And I'm also gonna explore what anxiety is in the context of entrepreneurship so you can just get rid of it today. Because the fastest way to grow and transform is in this present moment, and it's by doing massive action, but it's also by understanding the map. And that is what I'm gonna give you. Now, the first thing to understand is what I call the feeling versus the having identity trap. You cannot have anxiety. Having implies ownership. Then it is something that is in you or around you. And once you define and own something and say you have it, then you are controlled by it. Now that may seem like semantics, but the language we use is going to dictate and define our experience of it. So I want you now to stop saying, I have anxiety. I want you to start being aware of, confirming and saying, I'm feeling anxious. That one distinction may seem simple, but by interrupting yourself and consciously changing your language, you're immediately going to go from someone who's controlled by something, by someone who is in power. So just to keep it super simple again, anything negative is going to take a lot more time, energy, and resources, and ultimately it's counterproductive. And anything positive is going to be self-reinforcing, it's going to compound, and it's going to compound, and it's going to compound. So take the example of being a circle entrepreneur, a zigzag entrepreneur, and then a straight line. You'd imagine and assume that the circle entrepreneur is the one that has the least amount of energy. In fact, they actually burn the most amount of energy. Zigzag, again, takes a lot of energy, but it's counterproductive, or they don't make the movement and the rapid change that they want because it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Straight line begins to compound. And it's the same thing with your language when it comes to anxiety. So there is the feeling versus the having trap. When you make a definitive declarative statement of I am, it cannot be challenged. I'll give you an example from my life. I haven't drank alcohol in 5 years. I have made the decision to never drink alcohol again. And I'm using this as an example because if I had to put it in an I am identity statement, it would be I am a sober entrepreneur or just a sober man who X, Y, Z. So an I am statement is definitive, it's declarative. If you have anxiety or if you feel anxious, it's important that you begin to break the habit of being your anxious self. In fact, I would say that this is something for you to now use as a mental anchor. I am breaking the habit of being my anxious self. Now that is still focused on the negative and it's focused on the who you are. So we want to still have the who you are, but most importantly, once we have the truth and understanding of who we are, we then want to focus on who we're becoming. And the key part here is once you identify with something, you stop questioning it. It's just definitive. And I'll give you an extreme example, but hopefully this will land. There are certain religions out there in the world where they just simply do not drink alcohol. And that is not for debate, it's not defined. They don't have this dilemma in this head, this moral quandary of should I drink alcohol? It's a Friday and my friends are out, so maybe I will drink alcohol. The decision is already made. And for them, it was probably made from a young age and they've never questioned it and they've never challenged it. Now, whether you think that is small-minded or it's too rigid, up for debate. That's your decision. What I will say is it's incredibly effective for transformation and change. And that is what we're looking to do in this video. We are looking to eliminate or completely reduce or really reduce down your anxiety. And I would be remiss without saying, I'm not a qualified therapist. I'm not a qualified doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a guy on the internet who coaches very successful entrepreneurs that want to grow and expand. And I've spent years, decades in fact, studying, researching, and working on this stuff. This is practical. It is tried. I look for what works. I look for what works today. And the main reason I do this with entrepreneurs is because we want change now. We want to operate with speed, certainty, and power. Most entrepreneurs treat their anxiety as something as who they are rather than something that they're experiencing. And to keep this super practical, your anxiety will be linked to a sensation. It may be a tightness in your chest. It may be a tightness in your shoulders. It may be the rapidness and the quickness of your thoughts, but we notice the tension in our body and we always start with our state. And the reason we start with the body is because it's the fastest way to change. But we always start with the sensation and the tension if we want to eliminate or reduce something rapidly. I'm going to give you an exercise, and this is just a real simple one. I want you to close your eyes and I want to notice and be aware of any tension. And if you're feeling anxious now, I want you to be aware of a few things. One is your thoughts, but most importantly, the speed of your thoughts and the tonality. These matter far more than the contents of your thoughts. Let me explain simply. I could go, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious. And it's the speed and it's the tonality which is going to hijack your nervous system, and that is going to have a far greater impact than just simply what you're saying. Okay, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, 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 happy. That, even me saying I'm happy, has a bigger impact on your brain. That was a little exercise. Now, you don't have to do that right now, but I want you to bring some awareness into your language, the stories you're telling yourself, but most importantly, your thoughts. And I'll give you a real quick example. This is coffee. I'm about to drink some of my coffee. This is not an official recommendation, but if you are experiencing a high degree of anxiety right now, eliminate caffeine. Now, there are many people that have talked about the benefits of quitting and eliminating caffeine. I've tested it. I don't have any underlying anxiety. I'm not anxious tendency anymore. So thankfully, enjoy my coffee. However, I will say, if you really are deep in it right now, probably one of the quickest, fastest ways to shift is definitely some form of formalized breath work. But the feeling having identity trap is the first thing to understand. It is the first concept. Because we start there because it's linked to the stories you tell yourself and the language. And this is the internal language, but also the way you communicate. Because what you say and how you say it to others and how you say it to yourself is a big determinant of your reality. And to relate this to you in a story, when I shared about, and if I haven't shared this, I'll explain it. At 26, I went to a therapist and he told me that I had anxious tendencies. And he broke out the cycle and the patterns and how it works. A lot of the logical, theoretical part to understand. And I didn't even know that I was necessarily within an anxious tendency. And normally it's a cycle. Entrepreneurs, just in general, will have like a rising level and then they hit that anxiety point and it drops down, and then maybe there's a low depressive state and then it's up. Or it's just spike, 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 spike. But the key part is that the anxiety normally spikes up, and that could be over days, weeks, months, and it can be accumulation of pressure. But the key part I want to just introduce here too is that there's a sense of control. And there are fundamentally three parts when it comes to the dimension of control. And I first learned this from Tony Robbins. So the first thing is that you have an outward circle, and then you have another circle, and then you have another circle. Biggest circle is what you cannot control. Second circle is what you can influence. And then the final circle is what you can control. And I will share this for you. It's the first circle. This is the second, and this is the final one. So this top one, we're going to call COC, which is circle of control. Second one is COI, circle of influence. And then this one, I'm going to call the circle of LG, circle of letting go. And as you can see here, this is the one to focus on. This one here is the one that you influence. And then this one here is the one that you let go. So if you want to pause the video, you can start to make a list. That alone is going to help you, but that is still based a lot on the mind, and it's a practical exercise, but it's the first step. Next, we need to understand what is actually creating your anxiety. And when I say what is actually creating your anxiety, I'm going to change it to what is creating your anxiety and who is creating your anxiety. And I'll give you the answer off the bat. The who is you. I'm sorry, but I'm never going to be that guy that's going to do YouTube videos and give you all the reasons and permission to blame others, create a victim story, look outward and blame anyone or assign any responsibility or ownership to anyone else. Now, it's not about blaming yourself. I don't want you to go inward and then start to attack and loathe yourself. But at the same time, I want you to take responsibility and ownership and accept that you have attracted into your life, consciously or subconsciously, everything. And as a byproduct of doing that, you have created this. And once you know that you've created this, you also know that you can change it. Your anxiety is not random. It wasn't given to you at birth. It's not down to you having a broken brain. All of that stuff is either a lie, it's either exaggerated, or it's far from the truth, and it's a bending of the truth. And the key part here is that it's convenient. Basically, when it comes to anything transformation, you can look at it in terms of two ways. You can have comfortable lies or uncomfortable truth. We need to get to the uncomfortable truth, because once we operate from truth, we can truly make change, and then we can stop lying to ourselves and misleading ourselves and creating these stories and narratives that ultimately don't serve us to change. And in the context of entrepreneurship, you cannot afford to lie to yourself and tell stories that limit you, define you, and hold you back from growing rapidly and quickly. Here's a few things which anxiety is not, and it is not caused by. It's not caused by your revenue, it's not caused by your team, it's not caused by your market, it's not caused by your niche, it's not caused by your offer. Anything business related is reflected back in the personal. You probably heard this, I believe it's popularized by Sam Ovens, is that people don't have business problems, they have personal problems which are reflected in their business. Now, he took that from someone else, I think maybe it was Stephen Covey, but the point is that that statement is a pretty definitive statement, and I want you to really understand that and experience it. Key part here too, by the way, there's a difference between knowing something and living from something. You know this intellectually, I have no doubt. You're intelligent, you're smart, you're a smart entrepreneur, but you're also stuck and you're also anxious. So this is not a case of I know that. I don't want you to hear this, listen to this and say, yep, I know that, I've got this, because take it from me, someone that's read over 1,000 books and spent many, many years on all of these types of work. There was a period of my life where I knew everything. I was like Will in Good Will Hunting. I knew everything. And as Robin Williams' character shows him in Good Will Hunting, when they're sat on a beach, is he basically maps out and shows him by using an example of Rome and how Will has never been to Rome. So he could tell him about the Sistine Chapel and the patterns, but he's never visited Rome. And then he talks about Shakespeare and about love and about how Will could probably talk about love and quote a sonnet from Shakespeare, but he's never been in love. There's a key difference between knowing something and living from something. So in the context of this right now, I know you understand this. You have relationships, you have a mind, you have your health. I map everything into 10 areas of life, but to keep it simple, in your business, if you are feeling and experiencing anxiety, something is out of alignment, something is out of balance, or something is not happening. There are decisions that you have not made, and you have a ton of open loops, and you need to close those loops, because the open loops are just basically like running your laptop and computer and having everything loaded and then never shutting it down and restarting it. Anything you do which is just adding to the anxiety is gonna exacerbate. It's like pouring fuel on the fire. Just a lot of movement and work around like the future. And I'm going to get into that, but there's a big difference between living and operating from your future self versus looking at the gap between where you are in your future and then filling that gap there with anxiety. And a big example is people that are like, I'm not where I want to be. I need to be here. I must be here. I'm not happening. Things are not moving quicker and all this sort of stuff. And then you begin to buy into stories and then your whole posture shifts. And I'm going to load up the dimensions again. And I want you to understand that like there is the dimensions and you'll see that there are different dimensions. And then you'll see also the circle diagram too. And the key thing I want you to understand here is that you are probably not operating from the middle circle in either part. And when I say operating from, is in like most of your focus and your identity, your beliefs, your levels of energy, your actions and results. All of this, which is your internal operating system, which is just a fancy way of saying you, is not based in the circle here, which is the circle of control, and then the other circle, which is the really dimension of, how would I put this? Probably just say dimension of fulfillment. Dimension of fulfillment is probably a useful way. I'd also say this is the dimension of growth. In the context of anxiety, there's an underlying belief that you are not making progress and growing fast enough, and there's not enough certainty, and it's not coming from a place of power. And I've mentioned this, but if you look at it from a place of power, there is force and there is power. Force is not power. Power is not force. So as I mentioned, we have just a few areas here, and I want you to really look at the zone, and then I want you to realize that you are focused on a lot of stuff, which is either not urgent and not important, or it is urgent and not important. This stuff is going to be feeding the anxiety, the anxiousness. Then we have here, which is how you break through, which is the dimension of fulfillment, important and not urgent. This is truly how you eliminate and you go from anxious to being free. And this is the straight line. The reason is because when you feel fulfilled, you feel purposeful, your life has meaning, your business has meaning, and you're in flow and you're growing, you're going to be in the zone, just like an athlete. The next part is that there's going to be an element of the urgent and important that is open. And this is the whole idea of an open loop, closed loop. And we want to get rid of the open loops because we want to have closed loops. So there are decisions to be made. Now, I can't tell you what those are. Maybe it's shutting down a business, focusing on one of your other businesses. Maybe it's letting go of a team member. Maybe it's letting go of a client or a customer. Maybe it's signing a specific customer. But there's most likely going to be a series of open loops. And it's not just in your business, it's throughout your life, by the way. But there are definitely going to be some open loops which can be closed. The other thing with this diagram I think is important is that this stuff here, the not urgent and not important. Remember I shared the circles. Some of these are going to be basically the circle of letting go. And what you want to do is let go. And I'm going to show you how to do that, or at least show you part of how to do that. My intention with any of these videos is not to tell you how to think, what to think, how to act, who to be. I want to empower you, elevate you, and really just reflect back to you that you can be whoever you want to be and you can be your highest version and you can step from your hero to your superhero. But fundamentally, there are things to let go of. There are people, there are things, there are experiences, there are events, there are stories. There's an element of letting go. And the core issue, if I had to summarize it, is trying to control the uncontrollable. Now, next, I'm going to talk, and this is quite a dramatic and challenging statement, why everything you've tried hasn't worked, doesn't work, or doesn't work as well as you want. And I'm going to have to at least briefly make a lot of assumptions. So here's the ways that most people deal with anxiety. Taking pharmaceuticals, therapy, reading and learning and understanding more, distraction, socializing and partying. All of these are normally going to be one of three areas. And this comes from David Hawkins' Letting Go, is that there are 4 ways to deal, experience, and process your emotions. 1 is to escape. Next, we have to suppress or repress. And then we have to express. And then finally, we have letting go. Now, when David wrote the book Letting Go, unfortunately, he didn't really reveal how to do it, but he did a great job of exploring the underlying mechanisms, how it shows up in your life, the symptoms, the causes. So it's a phenomenal book. It is not required reading. I'm going to give you everything you need to know now. So let's start with way 1, which is suppression. It's not just suppression, it's also repression. And I'm going to condense like most modern psychology and psychiatry into the fact that if you suppress something, you're going to push it down, right? And then to repress something, it doesn't even enter the conscious mind, just unconsciously it just gets pushed down. And when I say push down, like this is not even true. Like really it's like push back. It's into your psyche, into your mind, but it can also be stored in your body. That is suppression, repression. I want you to think of this as a concept of pushing a beach ball in a pool, in the water, and then you're putting all this effort in, and as soon as you let go and fall back, it just jumps up. Next is to escape. Now, I don't probably need to expand on escape too much, but there are many ways we escape. You finish work and then you watch social media. Go out with your friends, get absolutely hammered, abuse alcohol, can be a form of escape. And then finally, we have to express. And the best way to think about this is imagine I just did a YouTube video and I just expressed to you for an hour on anxiety and I was just talking. It feels bad, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, I'm so anxious about this and oh my God, my business, what if this happens and this and this and this? And it was just full on expression. We all have that one friend where we meet up with them for a drink and they just basically just talk. They complain, they moan, they take no responsibility or ownership for their life and they're fully expressing. However, the one thing I will say with expression, and like the suppress and repress and like the escape, is it lets go of some of the tension. There's some form of release, but it doesn't fully release and let go of everything. So those are the 3. The other thing with these is that they work, and they work to an extent, but they don't eliminate and they don't fully let go, they don't fully reduce. So this is why we then have the 4th way, which is letting go. And this is basically, to keep it simple, is the non-resistance, and it is allowing something to come up, sitting with it, and then releasing it. And that is obviously so conceptual. So I'm going to give you an exercise. Now, this is not the one that my private clients get, but it's going to get you a little bit along the journey. And I'm going to keep saying this throughout the video because it's the one thing which I've found that most male entrepreneurs neglect, which is breath work. From a young age, we were never taught how to breathe. And thankfully now breath work has become in vogue and it's popular. If I leave you with nothing from this video, is start focusing and have an intention around your breath, because it is the fastest way to change. And most entrepreneurs are going to be in a cycle between suppression, escape, and expression. And then they wonder why their anxiety never goes away. Well, you're just jumping from one method to another method to another method, and they're ineffective, or at least they don't fully eliminate and reduce the problem being anxiety. So then you're stuck within that cycle. And I want you to reflect now and ask yourself, like, where am I escaping in my life? What am I suppressing? And what am I expressing? And we have what I call the avoidance cycle. The more we avoid something, the actual stronger it gets. And I'm going to share some of the research, but I want you to look at it and think of it in the context of trigger, release, repeat. But something comes up, you're triggered by something, you then let go, and you keep repeating this cycle again and again and again, which is why breath work is one of the best places to start. And just a quick one again, I'm going to briefly touch on each area. So I think expression is one of the most common, and it seems innocuous and it seems like it's effective. Like you may go to a therapy or a therapist, you may have gone for weeks, months, and years. And just to be clear here, I'm not commenting on that as a modality. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, just what I've observed from my own experience. I can reflect back that most likely when you go to a therapist and you talk about your problems and express them, that it feels good in the moment. And it not only feels good, but you feel like you're making progress. But what actually happens is you strengthen the emotional part. And if you keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, you're going to reaffirm and confirm your stories. You are going to keep focusing on what feels good. And before you know it, it's going to be years or decades. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to say, yeah, I've been in therapy for 20 years and it's great. Like I feel good, like I have to go. It really helps me. I couldn't imagine not having gone to therapy. The thing about therapy, and this comes from one of my kind of mentors, and he's helped me with my memoir, Tucker Max. Tucker went to psychiatry. He saw psychiatrists 3 or 4 times a week for a certain number of years. And the way he explained it, and I love it, and it's so true, is that therapy gives you a map. Got a map of Rome, right? And you know where the Colosseum is, and you know where the Basilica is, and you know everything. You've got the entire map. That is the map of the mind. However, you have not walked through Rome yet. Things about therapy or any therapeutic process is that it gives you a map, but it doesn't give you the ability, the experience to be able to walk the map. I'm not going to shit on therapy just again and again, but I want to also mention another part. Another part of the therapeutic process is it's not just the modality, so what type of therapy are you doing, but also what is your relationship like with the therapist? And one of the key parts and issues that I find with entrepreneurs is they're not talking to another business owner or entrepreneur. Like they're not speaking and discussing and working with someone who's in the arena. I am in the arena. I have multiple businesses. I'm always growing and expanding. Most of my world is spent with entrepreneurs and male entrepreneurs and business growth driven. And the key distinction here with anything which is around expression or just any type of transformation and change is, can you get as close to the source? And also, can you focus on what matters? And expression and therapy is one example. Now, the other part of escaping is that like you are basically avoiding again. It all comes back to this avoidance cycle, to be honest. Like if I had to keep it super simple, is all these ways, the reason they don't work is that they are avoidance. They are built up and they are conditions and structures where you avoid something. Rather than face it and meet it head on, you are creating avoidance. And the way that the ego and the mind works is it creates this beautiful box, and this is the avoidance box, and it keeps stacking and stacking, and the box gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then your life is fitting within a box, and that is your avoidance box. And until you can break out the box and get into what I call a lane, you are going to stay stuck within a box. So finally, thankfully, we get to what actually changes things. And again, like I said with point 3, who actually changes things? The who is always you. I am your guide. I'm going to guide you through this stuff, but it's always you that takes responsibility. So I'm going to break down and really get into specifics now, and I'm going to give you it's not necessarily techniques, and I want to just actually address this, by the way. Like, I can give you techniques and tools and tips and tricks and all these ways to break through, but the true honest answer is, if you feel compelled right now and called, just click the link below and I will help you. So what actually changes things? Step 1 is to stop owning it. Step 2 is to get your body and environment and mind in order. Step 3 is to learn the letting go process. Step 4 is to focus on your control zone. The goal is to not never feel anxious again, or to never have anxiety. It's to stop allowing it to control you and dictate your life and business, and for it to define you. This is the same principle as ADHD, anxiety, depression, or any of these topics. It is about being open, changing it, questioning it, and then upgrading it. That is the key transformation process. These labels do not have to be a sentence. If you've labeled yourself or someone else has labeled you, just as openly you adopted and took on that label, you can also take off that label. And I'm going to say this in every video. You are not broken. You do not need fixing. You are a male entrepreneur who is currently experiencing something, and you can move through it and go upwards and progress. And if you found this video insightful, transformative, and useful, you basically now have 3 options. Option 1 is you click below, you watch the next video, you engage, you reach out to me. Option 2 is that you click away and then you move on to the next thing and you stay within this anxious tendency and this ownership of anxiety. And then finally, option 3. Option 3 is you rewatch the video and then do option 1 again. And that is all I want you to do. And just to be clear, I just want to get this across because it's really important. Like, this is free content. Like, I don't charge for this other than your time and energy and your attention. And I take that seriously. I know you're a busy male entrepreneur, but those 3 options are the only options you have. And I really want you to change, but you can't change unless you want to change. And if you click this video, you clicked it for a reason. And right now you've changed your state and you need to take massive action now based on this state change. Not when you've left the video, not when you've changed to another task. It has to happen now. And this is why when my clients work with me, they get a daily practice. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. And this completely rewires everything. It changes how they think, they feel, and they act, and they move from their current identity to their desired identity. And I can promise you right now that your current identity, if it's anxious, is not your future identity. And that comes from a daily practice. And if this hit, I just want you to click the next video, and this goes deeper on identity and results-based change in the context of being an entrepreneur and growing your business. Now, if you are an actual entrepreneur and you're male and you're successful, and when I say successful, let's just say 30 to 100K a month beyond, and this is hit and this is landed, and you want to open up and start a conversation and see how I can help, just DM me the word anxiety on Instagram. You can see my Instagram below and we'll take it from there. But as always, thank you for watching and take care.